Maybe it's the Israeli equivalent of...
No, I went to Israel, and I don't remember eating cheddar cheese once when I was there.
It's because the price is too high.
That's probably true.
It's too damn high.
Well, earlier, Joey was skeptical. I'm going to transition back to Israel and the Israeli-United States relationship. Joey was very surprised that I was skeptical of Congress and that the executive branch could collaborate, that the executive branch that Clinton could negotiate and be an honest broker. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of the executive branch getting slapped down.
Yeah, I was shocked by your assertion, Tez.
Yeah. So, I mean, given that, the Israeli lobby is so strong, I mean, you really shouldn't be shocked. I hope that's sarcasm. So, when President Gerald Ford and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger grew impatient with Israeli intransigence during the disengagement negotiations with Egypt in 1975, reading from page 38 of the Israeli lobby, a threat to curtail aid and conduct a far-reaching reassessment of U.S. policy was derailed when 76 senators signed a letter sponsored by AIPAC demanding that Ford remain responsive to Israel's economic and military needs. And these military needs, after they had just slapped down Arab armies very easily, which was the official assessment of the United States and the official assessment of Israel, they were confident they would beat Arab armies quickly too, but they did send diplomatic messages like, oh, please help us. We need weapons. So there's one example of the executive branch.
That's probably the best example.
Really?
That did a lot to derail Gerald Ford's presidency. That, in a quote where he said in a debate and stood behind it, where he said that half of Europe was not under the influence of the Soviet Union. He said that in the middle of the Cold War. Those two things did a lot to derail him and cause him to lose when he was trying to get elected in 1976.
Another example comes from George P. Shultz, page 46. He was the Secretary of State under Reagan. And in early December 1982, he got word that a supplement was moving through the lame duck session of Congress to provide a $250 million increase in the amount of U.S. military assistance granted to Israel. This in the face of Israel's invasion of Lebanon, its use of cluster bombs, and its complicity in the Sabra and Shatila massacres. And they fought the supplement, and they said they fought it hard. They called Congress, senators, they called them personally and lobbied.
The Ronald Reagan administration didn't want the increase in aid to Israel.
And what happened? The supplement sailed right by us, says Schultz, and was approved by Congress as though President Reagan and I had not even been there. I was astonished and disheartened. This brought home to me vividly Israel's leverage in our Congress. I saw that I must work carefully with the Israelis if I was to have any handle on congressional action that might affect Israel, if I was to maintain congressional support for my efforts to make progress in the Middle East.
Well, just look at the confirmation hearings for Hagel. This guy says like one thing like 10 years ago, and that's like 90% of the whole hearing was.
Yeah, not his quotes on homosexuals.
Yeah, they don't even care. That's you can say whatever you want about them, but you say that you're an American senator, not an Israeli senator. Oh hell no. You got heads who got to roll for that. And they didn't ask him one question about Veterans Affairs. They didn't ask him about Afghanistan. What's really going on here? Like, why did this topic dominate the entire hearing? Why did they not digress into actual concerns of the military?
I do want to defend my point before Tez attacks me again. I said that when it comes to trying to make a two-state solution deal between Israel and Palestine, that presidents, including Bill Clinton most famously, were able to go in and negotiate and do it in spite of any kind of influence coming from Congress that would be against that. I recognize that there's other areas where, especially budgetary things, where Congress literally writes the budget so they can do things like that. But when it comes to the deals of the two-state solution stuff, the president has all the capability to do that. The problem is Israelis and Palestinians not wanting to come to the drawing board, not wanting to negotiate. That's the problem.
I think it's flatly false what you just stated, because the executive branch has no power to say, we're going to stop giving you this billion in aid, or this billion in aid, or this billion in aid, because Congress won't go along. There is no negotiation power.
But do you really think that that's why Israel and Palestine aren't working together on budget stuff? I mean, Israel still funds more than 90% of its own military budget. So Israel and Palestine not coming together and not working together, I don't think is because of Congress's budget including goodies for Israel.
We, in the 1950s, got Israel to act when we had serious threats to curtail their aid. We no longer have that ability. Congress writes Israel a blank check no matter what they do. As I just quoted, George Shultz was shocked that we were going to give Israelis more money after they were, violent, unnecessarily violent in his words. Or that's my paraphrase. So I'm just not buying it.
I'm not buying you either, Tez.
But we let a lot of other countries get away with it. We don't do anything about human rights violations in China. We might bring it up and mention it, but we don't do any damn thing about it.
But what can we do about it? We can't do anything there. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
what can we do
that doesn't mean that we don't
about Israel? We can't do anything there either.
Nope.
So get along or we'll nuke you all.
That's the thing. Israel has nukes.
Yeah.
They keep saying that. Oh well, they keep saying, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe we do, but that's what they say officially. But everybody knows they have nukes.
Wait,
you can't push around people that have nukes.
Israel doesn't officially recognize it, so I think it's very biased of us to.
That's anti-Semitic. It's anti-Semitic. They may or may not have nukes, but to suggest that they do outright is anti-Semitic. I will say that.
So why did we go into Iraq in 2003? Or why did we go into the Gulf War?
Because Saddam Hussein bombed us on 9/11.
Oh my God.
Oh, obviously.
Right, that's what happened, right?
Well, I was thinking about blaming it on the Israeli lobby. What do you guys think about that?
I'm not touching that.
I'm not touching that one.
I still want to get a loan for a house or something. Yeah, come on now.
Man, that was incompetence. That was CIA. That was yellow journalism and yellow fever and in the White House. I don't think that was AIPAC.
I think the administration came in wanting to go to Iraq. I mean, according to Paul O'Neill, Treasury Secretary, it was on their mind way before 9/11. As soon as they came into office, that was one of their main things.
You're absolutely right.
The tax cut and
invading
Iraq.
Project for a New American Century. They had a letter, and their letter, quote, stated, if Saddam Hussein was to obtain weapons of mass destruction, it's almost certain, here's where the quote really begins, then the safety of American troops in the region, of our friends and allies like Israel and the moderate Arab states, and a significant portion of the world's supply of oil would be put at hazard. So that was the neoconservative points.
Exactly. I think they wanted a foothold in the region because they knew it was going to be such a valuable region. I mean, you want to have some little room for some influence and, maybe to build a pipeline across 3 countries or...
There was talk from Ahmed Chalbali, however you say his name, of possibly building a pipeline. Yes, but the oil industry was not lobbying for war. There's no documentation of the oil industry lobbying for war. The oil industry, they had lobbied to do away with sanctions because they wanted to go into Iraq and pump out oil and make money. But there is documentation of the Israeli lobby wanting us to go into the Iraq war. Dun, dun,
but
dun.
that's not what caused it.
That left Iranians.
Here's something to think about. Here's something to think about. Donald Rumsfeld actually wrote a letter to the Bill Clinton administration. Donald Rumsfeld, who would later become the defense secretary for George W. Bush. Yeah. In the 1990s...
He signed the letter I was talking about.
He signed the letter that you were talking about. He literally was saying, war with Iraq Seems like a pretty good idea. He was advocating this in the 1990s, and then he becomes defense secretary. So the people in the Bush administration had yellow fever. They wanted to go to war. They wanted to be there. Bush wanted to be a war president, and they were looking for where they could get involved, and that seemed like, the CIA had a little bit of evidence, so they said, okay, let's go with this.
A little bit of false evidence.
A little bit of false. Well, I don't think that they knew it was false. I just think that they knew it was,
Did they care?
It was flimsy evidence, and they didn't want to notice that it was flimsy.
All they needed was some flimsy evidence. That's how most people operate, though. So can't blame them.
You had Douglas Feith. You also had Richard Pearl in the Bush administration pressuring for this Iraqi policy. And 2 years before that letter, for the Project for New American Century, you had what's called the Clean Break Report in June of 1996. Written, I'm quoting, page 239, written under the auspices of a right-wing Israeli think tank recommending for incoming Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The report recommended, among other things, that Netanyahu focus on removing Saddam Hussein from power in Iraq, an important Israeli strategic objective in its own right. It also called for Israel to take steps to reorder the entire Middle East. Netanyahu did not implement their advice, but Feith, Pearl, and Wormser were soon advocating that the Bush administration pursue those same goals.
I just want to point out, Netanyahu wanted to get rid of Saddam, but so did everybody. That doesn't mean he supported war to get rid of Saddam.
Everybody is a ridiculous statement, because Britain didn't want to go into war.
Not into war, but they wanted to get rid of Saddam.
A poll taken just before the war revealed, page 238, only 39% of British citizens supported invading Iraq.
Yeah, invading Iraq, but not just getting like that doesn't mean getting rid of Saddam. They say, yeah, sure, get rid of Saddam, but not if it means going to war.
But getting rid of Saddam has left this power vacuum in the region. It's destabilized everything. We got Iran, who was Saddam Hussein's greatest enemy, not America. People would confuse it and say that America was Saddam's greatest enemy, but it was the Iranians, because they actually had a war and they despised each other.
We funded. The Reagan administration made sure they got a lot of funding in Iraq.
Donald Rumsfeld went over there and met with Saddam Hussein,
shook hands, said, "Hey, friend,
and everything.
Here's some weapons.
Exactly,
can kill some Iranians.
Exactly, but."
Fool.
But we got rid of Saddam, and now we're mad because Iran has become the greatest power.
It's really with the fall of Egypt, it's Iran and it's Saudi Arabia. Those are really the two titans that are left standing over there.
Yeah, well, if you look at
they hate each other.
If you look what happened in Libya with the removal of Gaddafi, it destabilized everything in that area, and now you have terrorists infiltrating Mali and Algeria. And I remember distinctly when Muammar Gaddafi got on TV and he said that the rebels are Al Qaeda. Everybody looked at him and said, "You're crazy. What the hell are you talking about?"
And it wasn't the first time.
And here you go. All of a sudden, we got Al Qaeda in Libya, Al Qaeda in Algeria. Al Qaeda controls an area larger than France right now in the Sahara Desert.
But I mean, Al Qaeda was already out there. And I just want to add, France is out there now that's trying to fight them with actual ground troops, which seems like weird coming from France. I thought they were really peaceful and stuff, but they've got ground troops over there, which is something even the U.S. wouldn't do at this point. Does this look like a good idea to you guys? Does this seem like something that's going to work, or are they going to get pulled into some sort of miniature Vietnam?
I don't know, because the people in Mali, the majority of the people in Mali do not want these people here. They're tearing down the statues that have been around for hundreds of years, in some cases thousands, and these are world historic sites, and they're going in and saying these
Timbuktu.
Timbuktu. You know, how long have you heard about that? They're going in and tearing everything down because it's idolatry to them. So these are like the extreme hard line, the far right of the Islamic world.